I'm Dr. Judith, a senior research scientist at Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute in the Department of Oceanography and Hydrography. Basically, I'm a mangrove ecologist, and why mangroves? I believe it's a unique ecosystem that suffers a lot from human disturbances, and we ought to stand tall to protect mangroves. Now, I accepted to join this conversation basically to get the world to know that as women, we are also able. It's not only men who can do it, we can also do it. I would say I found myself a marine ecologist. I never dreamt in my childhood that I would be anywhere near the ocean, let alone in a forest. When I joined the university, I joined to do forestry, and that was my personal choice. My family wanted me to be an engineer because all my brothers are engineers, including my father. My father was also, the late Peter Okello, was also an engineer, and my sister is a chemist. So everyone wanted me to be an engineer. So I decided to, when I joined the university, decided to do just something different. And that's how I landed in forestry. And later on got some interest with the marine ecosystem and decided to do an MSc, a master's in marine ecology, just to get to understand, the interesting stuff that is in the ocean. When I used to watch documentaries about the ocean and all that, I'd never been to the coast. But then I thought, wait a minute, something is interesting here. Deep in the ocean, there are very interesting organisms. So I thought, well, why can't I dive into that and try that out? I tend to think that it's us women who are letting ourselves down. We are able to do it, and I don't even believe in women receiving handouts or women being considered as inferior species. As a matter of fact, okay, we are not equals because anyway, God created us to complement each other. So in one way or the other, we should stand in the society and do things that complement what men do. We should not wait to be dished out, handouts, or expect to be considered for opportunities that are out there. Probably I did mention, or I could mention at this point in time, I love fundamental science. I love understanding the whys in the world, why this is that and not that. But then I realized that then I have to connect this with the normal life of the common man. So I do fundamental science to understand the physiology, for instance, of plants, why this plant is behaving like this. Then what next? How will the common man benefit? So in a nutshell, my job is not only to experiment, but my job is also to understand what is there for the common man. How can the common man benefit from nature, for instance? What are the ecosystem services that are there? And how do we interact with the ecosystem? How can we help nature breathe? How can we let the world be there for the next generation? So those are the kind of questions that I'm trying to answer, and working closely with the community so that we are together in this. And when I say community, I'm sorry for being a little bit biased. I work more with the women groups because they are people who are self-motivated. Most of community group and conservation groups that are here at the coast are women-led. And the ones that are women-led tend to succeed more. Women are kind of elastic, I would say. They are versatile. It's easier to convince a woman to do something than a man. Naturally, the way men were created as the head, so they believe they should be, the decision makers, and they should be the ones to say, then the others follow. While for a woman, it's easier to convince a woman, we can also try this. Probably it will work. For a man, you find a man, he's a fisherman. He will always want to be the fisherman, You cannot convince that fisherman that, drop your nets, let's go farming. If it's a woman, she can give you space, say, let's try this. Probably it works. So that's why most of us work more with women than men. Wow, my journey has been a long one, and if I would begin now, probably I would spend the whole day talking about my journey. But basically, as a scientist, as I had already indicated before, when I was a young baby, I would say I didn't have any dream. I'm the second last born in a family of scholars, people who did well in school. So my dream was just to be number one, number two, nothing beyond that. I want to be a good position in school so that I don't get caned. And my brothers were always on my neck. My dream was just to do well in school. Nothing of being a doctor, being nothing. I never thought about that until when I was in Form 3. And when I was in high school, apparently we went to the same school with my sister. Again in high school, I was working hard because I was emulating my sister. Yeah. And I used to call her my mirror because I would say I want to be where my sister is. She was a dorm prefect, I wasn't. So I was like, there's something I'm not doing right. I ought to do this. She was always position 1, I wasn't. Well, I had good grades, but I was always fighting, why can't I be position 1? So there's this mirror I used to look at. I want to be there. I want to go to do my first degree. And when I got into campus to do my first degree, she went to do her second degree. And I was like, no, I'm not stopping. I have to be there. So I did my first degree in forestry. And then I thought, well, let me try marine science. I did my MSc in marine science. At that point now, I got focused. When I remember when I went for my master's study, the first day I was in class, they were talking about aquatic science. Remember, I was from the forest. Yes, and now I'm in the ocean. And there are these girls or boys in class. When they understand, they sing along with the teacher. So you are there seated, trying to concentrate. You look like you don't understand. And you are like, will I really make it? That was the kind of mentality I had when I joined my MSc in marine ecology. That was in Belgium, when I got a scholarship. And something that I'm forgetting to indicate, I think I have a lucky star. People apply for scholarships and they do it several times and they never get it. I applied for 2 scholarships and I got both of them. One was in European forestry and the other one was in ecological marine management.
Okay.
This is where family now comes in. At that point, I was already married and I had my daughter, and my then husband was in Belgium. So I had to think, family is here, my daughter is still young, I've gotten 2 scholarships. One I should be in the UK, the other one I should be in Belgium. What am I going to do? At that point in time, I didn't have a job. I was just on internship with the Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute. So I quickly thought, sorry to use my local language. In Luo, we say, Atonga mayot emiyombogo koth.
Tonga mayot emiyombo go koth.
When it's coming to rain and you have a lot of luggage around you, pick the lightest and run with it. In that case, you'll be able to have at least a luggage and you'll have escaped from the rain. So I thought, well and good. I pick my daughter, I go to Belgium where my husband is. So that's how, I would say that's how I ended up diving deeper into marine ecology. Yeah. So there I am doing my MSc. I'm with my husband and my daughter. We are both in Belgium. Quite supportive. We are together in it. I keep on with my studies. I finished my MSc. Along the way, I had my second son. Don't be cheated that it's gonna be easy. And this is something I have to mention. I had my son when I was in second year of my MSc study. And at that point in time, my university did not allow me to remain in school with my son. So I had to fly back to Kenya, come and deliver. I left my son when he was only 2 weeks old. And I had to go back to Belgium. Now, this is something that has been chewing my mind to date. At one point, I sit and say, probably I would have not gone back to Belgium. I should have concentrated on taking care of my son and not gone back to Belgium. The next minute, when I look at my payslip and I look at my life now, that was the best decision that I made at that point in time. And probably at this point, I would thank my family for the support. They stood with me, and as much as the outside world were making a lot of noise, what kind of a mother is leaving a 2-week-old son going to study? My then husband stood with me and told me, Judith, you have to do it. I'll take care of this, of our boy. My mom was then alive. She was like, James is also abroad, that's my brother is also abroad. He is doing this, you can also do it. My sisters, like my whole family was backing me up. Just go and do it, you can do it. So it was so difficult. I remember I cried all the way to Belgium in the flight. And I would just request to listen to the voice of my son crying on phone, just to feel it's not easy. I have to admit that. So along the line, my boy is diagnosed with autism. So that throws me back to ask the same question. Am I the reason for this? So actually I had to visit a psychologist, and which I do to date, because it never flies away, it still comes. You should have done this. Some decisions we make in life, they kind of haunt you for the rest of your life. But then I finished my MSc, and guess what? I was the second best in our class. Yes, I was the second best in our class. And I remember on our graduation day, I don't know where I got these guts from. And I was there talking with my professor. And on that day, my professor, Professor Nico Kudam, told me, Judith, I want you to do a PhD. And back in my mind, I'm like, I have a family down there. I don't have a job. I want to go home to look for a job. And I want to go and take care of my family. I don't want this PhD. Leave me alone. I wanted to go back to my family and look for a job and settle in my country. So he was like, you came here, you were a forester, and now you are here. And we give this scholarship. I want you to do it. So I was like, well, I'm going to think about it. So I came back home. Luckily enough, I got a job at Kwetu Training Center. And that is where my motivation for working for the community grew a lot. You realize that during today's session, we were speaking a lot of Swahili. Myself, I'm a Luo. You will ask yourself how a Luo got to learn Swahili to an extent that she is teaching in Swahili. Yeah. I must say, every step in your life, you have to take it seriously because you never know what will coin your future. That's what I tell everyone. Take each and every step seriously. So it is my life at Kwetu Training Center that made the Judy that you are seeing today. The Judith before Kwetu was a scientist, but after joining Kwetu, there was a Judith who could combine science with general life, so and could apply it in real life. So we did a lot of outreach, and I had to speak Swahili. The nice thing with humans is that, believe me or not, you can do anything you want to do. Given a chance and the mindset, you can do anything. I was not able to speak before people at that point when I joined Kwetu. But then a few months later, I used to do it. And I would speak in Kiswahili. And I would speak in barazas. Until at one point I had to remind people, you know what? I'm not from here. Then as time went by, I now thought about what my professor had told me. And I said, okay, because he kept on pestering. So I decided to do a proposal and it was accepted, and that's where my PhD journey started. Now, the PhD journey turned out to be quite difficult. And now this comes as a warning. It won't be a walk in the park. For women who want to be there, you have family, you have study, it won't be a walk in the park. So now with my husband back home, my daughter back home, my son is also home, and I have to now go to Belgium every now and then. My family broke apart. So it's not easy. It's not easy. Then you start hearing these voices, blame games, you are studying too much, you are not concentrating. But what I want to tell you, you have to remain focused. You have to tell yourself, I had started this and I have to finish it. Now at this point, I bring in my professor, or let me say my mentor, Dr. Cairo. He once told me when I almost stopped doing my PhD, when I saw my family was breaking, he told me, Judith, when it becomes too hot, you will not stand for these kids with nothing in your hands. You will need something in your hands. Chase your PhD to the very end. You started it, you got a scholarship. How many people cry for scholarships they don't get? So many. Run with it to the very end. And that's exactly what I did. Along the way, my mom passed, I lost my family, but then I kept on. It was a very long journey. Yes. Nevertheless, I finished. And somewhere along the line, good things also happened. I got confirmed in Kemfree as a research scientist in 2012 as assistant research scientist. And I moved very fast up the rank because it was only about publication, working with the community, and proving you can do it. And well, within no time, I'm now a senior research scientist. And I would say I'm so proud of myself because my journey has not been easy. Yeah. Wow. With studies, I would say I've had enough. People say you study forever, but I think for now, I've gotten what I'd wanted to get in my pocket in terms of papers. I want to do more research. Now, just doing more research to understand the world. There's a lot that is still hidden. Like, for example, even the mangrove ecosystem, when I walk there, I still see more questions than answers.
Really?
Very many questions than answers. A lot has been done, but a lot is yet to be done. I'm a scientist, but I'm also a Christian. So when I talk, I like combining the two. As Christians, we believe that God created the world and it was perfect in his vision. So as humans, we are trying to understand what God already made. And God is just a supreme being. So he made things in his own way. So for us to understand fully this system, it will take us time. And it's a day at a time. So for instance, now that I mentioned mangroves and you wanted me to give you an example, there are these areas in the mangroves, when you walk, they look like playing fields. They are just open. So my professor or my mentor, Dr. Cairo, used to tell us that, you know what? It's like a man's head. Not everywhere there's hair. So you could find bald. So this is natural. So one day when I was in the mangroves, I got this group of community who are making ponds, fish ponds. And when they dug down, there were logs, big logs, lying down there. Yes. So, in short, once there was a forest there, no one knows when, and those are some of the questions we ought to answer. If there was a forest there, what happened, and how can we bring it back? Instead of sitting and watching. Or instead of saying, let us plant, 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 and sometimes we even plant in areas that do not deserve to be planted. We plant because donors have brought money for us to plant. Yes. And they want us to plant. They want to see us doing it. So beyond that, we need to ask ourselves, do we want to just plant or we want to restore the ecosystem? We want to bring it back to where it was. So we really need to understand the ecosystem better than we think we do at this point in time. Yeah, now when I talk of mangroves, mangroves are quite different from terrestrial forests. Mangroves are restricted to a given strip in the coast. They only grow in the tidal flat where water comes in and lives. So if you are a bit familiar with the ocean, you realize that there are times when you'll go there and you'll find the water has moved several miles away. Then there are times when you go and find the water has come back. So it's within this particular region that mangrove grows. So they just don't grow anywhere. So if it's about restoring, we should understand clearly what was there before and restore. Now, unlike normal forests, mangroves are quite unique. The word mangrove is a tree, it's a forest, and it's an ecosystem. So when I say ecosystem, it encompasses the trees, the organisms, and the environment itself. All that is mangrove. So when you hear mangrove, climate change, it means a lot more than just that particular tree. So when you clear a mangrove area, unlike a terrestrial forest where you lose relatively less, in mangroves you lose a lot because there's also interconnectivity with other systems that are in the sea. Talk of the seagrass beds and even further talk of the coral reef. All these are connected. So you destroy one, the other one suffers. It's like you kill a mom, the kid is in trouble. And the entire generation is done. So kill mangroves, seagrass beds are in trouble, and consequently the coral reefs are in trouble. Yeah. And in terms of climate change, because mangroves are quite productive, they accumulate a lot of biomass, not just in the tree you see, but even on the ground. So a lot of carbon is stored there, trapped. Something which if you release, it's chaos. So we are trapping that to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases in the air. And that's what climate change is. And when we talk of climate change, we think about, big things. It's as simple as saying that without us humans, nature would be very happy. Interesting question. I have a personal drive. Remember I told you my family they are engineers. So in fact, one time, one of my brothers who is an electrical engineer, he's based in Japan, he asked me, Judith, for God's sake, you go all the way to Belgium to go and learn how to plant trees. So for him, he doesn't just understand, you know, he feels like, but then for me, I feel it's bigger. You know, the environment is everything. I believe that we all need the environment. We all need a healthy environment. We all have to work together to protect nature. Yeah, what would we be without nature? For me, it's about myself, and it's about the entire generation and the generations to come. Yeah.